Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Empower Hour. This is something we do every Sunday, and we come on here and we give you all tips that will help you in your journey on moving forward after leaving the Jehovah's Witnesses. If you're watching this on YouTube, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. Share this with all your friends because this will be a very, very special episode. Also, in the description below is a link to our Facebook group, the Empowered Minds Facebook group. Join our Facebook group because you get a lot of support and encouragement there. Today, we're going to be talking about mistakes that I made after leaving the Jehovah Witnesses. Sometimes the best lessons are, where you've stepped in the hole, where you stepped on something you don't want to step on, and you learn from it. So a lot of times we can learn by not making the same mistakes ourselves, and it can fast track our healing, our progress. Again, we want to always live a life that thrives. We don't want to simply survive. We don't want to just keep our head above water. We want to thrive in life. So I'm going to share with you mistakes that I made, that many people make. More people than not make these mistakes. We got a panel that is in the green room right now that is watching. They're going to jump on during the second half of this, but let's get started. Mistakes that I made, me, Coach Rod, I made these mistakes myself, and I don't want you to make them. So let's start with mistake number one. Mistake number one is I was stuck in my story. Anyone that was in hearing distance of me heard my story. How I was done so wrong. How the religion screwed me over. How this person screwed me over. How I missed this in life and I missed that in life. How the witnesses were so awful. I was stuck in my story. I had a story of someone who worked for me, who was an elder, one of my best friends since I was 10 years old, that ripped off a bunch of my accounts. He worked for me for 13 years. And man, I was so mad at him, and I would tell this story to anybody that would listen. I was so stuck in my story. And when you have a story that you get stuck on, you become reliant on your story. Your story becomes part of who you are. It's a crutch. You won't get past your story. When your mind is focused on something, the super subconscious part of your mind, the creative subconscious part of your mind, is looking for evidence to support that story. And that's what so many ex-Jehovah Witnesses do. You're looking for evidence to support the story. And that's why so many people are triggered right now with some of the changes in the Watchtower because, there they go. Look at them. Look at them. It's supporting your story. New light again. I told you, they're always changing things up. I told you they were going to do this and they were going to do that. And you get stuck in your story. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, you only have so much bandwidth in your mind. And I was using so much of my time and so much of my energy and so much of my bandwidth on the witnesses. I remember I would stay up to 3, 4 o'clock in the morning watching video after video after video, just fortifying this, just adding energy to this. And at that time of my life was an absolute mess in every way. My life was a mess with my relationships. My life was a mess with my finances. My life was a disaster. And guess who I blamed? I blamed all of it on the witnesses. You see, in life, no one's going to fix your problems but you. In life, nothing changes until you take responsibility. Nothing was going to change in my life until I took responsibility. Nothing was going to change in my life until I began to tell a different story. If you want to bring things into your life, you've got to look at what you want in life, and you got to tell that story of what you want as if it already exists. If you want to attract things into your life, you got to be stuck on what you want. What you see for yourself. You've got to be focused on your vision. You've got to be focused on where you're going. And a lot of you have heard me say this before. There's a reason why your rearview mirror is about the size of my cell phone and your windshield is this big. because you cannot move forward in life. You cannot get what you want if you're stuck at looking at your rearview mirror, if you're stuck at looking what's behind you. If you stay stuck on what's behind you, you will keep crashing over and over again. And you will keep blaming the witnesses when the problem is that you're looking in your rearview mirror. It's not even the witnesses at this point, it's you. It was me. Life's not fair. Everybody's got stuff to deal with. We're not special. Everybody's got problems. Life is not fair. Everybody's got things to get over. But I wanted this thing to blame. And what happens when you blame, when you're pointing fingers, you got one finger this way, you got three more pointing back at you. I was the problem. I was stuck in my story. And until that changes, your life won't change. Some of us have been out for 10 years, 15 years, still blaming what's behind us. If we want to move forward, we must take responsibility of our lives regardless of what has happened to us in the past. It may be the reason, a lot of those things may be a reason. But let me tell you something. It's not the cure. It's not the cure. If we're damaged, it's not going to fix us. When we're blaming something, we're in essence saying that thing I'm blaming needs to come over here and fix the problem. And guess what? That's not going to happen. So at some point, you've got to draw the line and you've got to change your story. I don't even call myself an ex-witness. Calling myself an ex-witness ties me to it. That's just a part of my life. I was there when I was there. I'm not there anymore. I'm Rodney. I'm Coach Rod. I'm all these other things that I want to be. I'm not an ex-witness. I was in the organization at one time, but I'm not anymore. I don't call myself an ex-Castle High School student because I went to Castle High School at one portion of my life. I do not walk around with a t-shirt and claiming my high school. That's just a part of my life that's years and years and years and years behind me. I look at the organization the same way. So I got stuck in my story. And if you're stuck in your story, begin to tell another story. A story of victory, not a story of being a victim. Number 2, I failed to manage my emotions. Emotions is something that you can get control of. I didn't manage my emotions. I would watch things that would trigger me on purpose. I would watch things that would make me mad. I would watch things that really, really upset me. I would be in a bad mood for the rest of the day. Now, I realize that there is a season for that. When you're first leaving the religion, you want to dig in deep. You want to go down the rabbit hole. You need all the proof that you need to move on. But at some point, you've got to stop ingesting things that trigger your emotions. I don't watch any documentaries today. I don't watch anything having to do with the witnesses. Even though I'm here helping ex-witnesses, I don't watch them because I'll get mad. I already know it happens. For me to watch another video of a molestation case or some of the foul things that happen within that religion, I already know it happens. I don't need to watch it. You see, when you have enough proof that it's not the truth, you got to just move on. If you had a mate that cheated on you and you had a private investigator show you these 5 or 6 different men or women that your mate had been with, and you decide, oh my God, my mate's a cheater, I'm going to divorce that person. Years later, you're not still looking up evidence of more incidences. Like if they gave you proof of 4 or 5 different people, guess what? There's 30 of them. Are you going to use your time investigating all the lies that this person told you over the years? Are you going to be over it? Now, if you've been divorced for 10 years and somebody goes, guess what? I came up with a video. Somebody gave me a video of your ex cheating on you 10 years ago. Guess what? It's still going to upset you. You're going to go, oh my God, that rat, he told me he was on a business trip and he was in Jamaica with some woman. You're going to get triggered all those years later. When you have the evidence you need and you're done, you're done. Put a wrap on it, because your emotions will get triggered over and over and over again. And you cannot move forward with these triggered emotions. And that I made that mistake. I was not controlling my emotion. I was not controlling the information I was ingesting. I would watch anything that had to do with the witnesses. I would watch anything, and it would piss me off over and over and over again. Another mistake I made is I thought it was my duty to convince everybody. This is number 3. I tried to convince everyone that they needed to see the world the way I did. When I woke up, I thought everybody needs to wake up, not understanding that I was them years earlier. I was you. I used to shut my ears too. I considered everything apostate. You're just further ahead. You're just further down the road. It's not my duty to wake up anyone. People will only listen when they're ready. They like to say, there's a saying that says, a person convinced against their will remain of the same opinion still. You won't make sense to them till they're ready. A lot of times when you're debating with a witness, it's not about what you're talking about. What you're talking about is not the issue. And the more sound reasoning you have, the more they're going to push against you. The more sound reasoning you have, the more you're the enemy, because you're threatening life as they know it. It's really not about what you're talking about. It's about the fact that if you're right, then everything I know goes away tomorrow. So they've got to wake up in their own time. If you force somebody to wake up, they've got a marriage that might break up. They got kids that might turn on them. They might have a job that relies on it. They've got parents and all kinds of things. People need to be ready to handle those things. And it's not on your terms. Sometimes we can be quite selfish. I didn't realize how selfish I was being by saying, you got to wake up because I did. And I might wreck your whole marriage. No, you wake up when you're ready to carry that load, because it's a heavy burden. All of you know it's a heavy burden because you're feeling it right now. It's weighty. And it's not for us to convince somebody that you got to wake up because I did. That's not fair. Right? So, no, people need to wake up in their own time. When somebody's door is dead bolted shut, you're not going to open it. You're going to hurt yourself trying to open that door. You're going to damage the door. Now, I will wake you up if that door is cracked. If you give me a cracked door, I'll blow that door wide open, right? Because that person is ready. And I start dropping seeds in that person. But everybody's not going to wake up when you do. Number 4, I got caught up in escapisms. This is another thing that ex-witnesses go through. I got caught up in escapisms because I had such a void in me. I had lost my community. I had lost the people who I thought were my friends. And I got caught up in escapism, which means I just kept moving. I could not sit still. I was at a bar. I was at a club. I was out dancing. I was out chasing women. I was doing all that stuff, all that nonsense. And all it did is put more weight on my life, more drama in my life. I was not discreet about how I lived my life. I was all into escapisms. I could not wait for happy hour every single day. It's 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock somewhere. And I was on the move, right? And the people I was around weren't the greatest people. And I was becoming exactly like what the witnesses say. Now, they expect you to live the most hedonistic life after you leave the religion. Oh, you've left Jehovah. You're going to do this and you're going to do that. You're in the world. And a lot of us fit the bill. I did. And my life was horrible. Just filling my life with things to fill the void. And you will never fill the void that way. It just gets to be a deeper and deeper hole. When you leave, when you fill that void, that's the time to learn, to grow, to dig in, to learn about yourself. Who am I outside this religion? Who am I? What do I believe about all kinds of things? Now you have the freedom to go explore and see what resonates with you and what doesn't. And if you're stuck in living a life of just escaping, you're not growing. You just have a void. And later on, you'll look at yourself and be ashamed of a lot of things that you may have done. You just added and compounded more problems to your life. So try to stay out of escapism. And again, if you did, don't beat yourself up. Don't beat yourself up about anything. Learn from it. Don't beat yourself up. That'll be another mistake if you beat yourself up because you're not taking the lesson. There's not that much I regret in life because I learned from it, right? But if you're doing that, look at yourself. Understand that there's a void. Some people, instead of escapisms, they run from relationship to relationship. So maybe they're not being hedonistic in their life, but they can't stay out of a relationship because they got that void. And you cannot find a relationship that resonates the right way if you don't know who you are. If you don't know who you are, I guarantee you, you'll pick the wrong person after the wrong person after the wrong person because you don't know who you are. And when you're trying to get in a relationship and you're bringing an empty cup, you'll find somebody else who has a pretty empty cup. Like attracts like. You're going to attract somebody just like you. If you feel broken and you think a relationship is going to fix you, you'll only find a broken person. A person that's worked on themselves, a person that has grown and has added value to their own life. They're not looking for you if you're broken. They work too hard in their life. I remember when I got this lesson, I was out one night at a networking thing, and I met this woman that I go, oh my gosh, she checks every box. My gosh, she is. That's what I'm looking for, right? And then I thought to myself, I go, bro, you don't qualify. You're a mess. You might fool her for a second, but in a month or so, she'll figure out you're a mess. And she worked way too hard on herself to be who she is to want to deal with you. And at that moment, I said, I need to stay single for a while. I need to work on me because I don't qualify for that. You see. So work on yourself. Quit trying to fill the void. You got to go inside to fill the void. You're not going to fill the void by grabbing things outside of you, thinking it's a person, thinking it's an activity. The void can only be filled by you getting in touch with you, by you getting in alignment for the first time in your life, because that whole time you were in that religion, you were out of alignment. They made their religion important and who you were and the gifts and the talents and the things that you had to give that planet was made unimportant. Now is your time to really tap into you. Another thing, a mistake I made, number 5, would be that I held on too long. I had ideas that somehow, some way I could hold on to certain relationships. I worked so hard to not be disfellowship. Right? I'm still not disfellowship. But guess what? At the end of the day, it's the same result. At the end of the day, all I did was prolong the inevitable. I held on for too long. I tried to outsmart everything. And really, what you need is courage. My life changed when I just stood up and said, I'm going to be courageous. I'm going to draw the line and let things fall where they may. Courage. Everything you want in life is on the other side of courage. And that's something the witnesses did not teach you. They taught you to be courageous for your religion, but not courageous for yourself. Be courageous. Understand that, yeah, you're going to hurt. You're going to have some hurt. You're going to be disappointed. But when you're courageous and you make that a priority in your life, you could take it. When you're focused on where you want to go in life, you could take it. And you realize that the things that no longer resonate are going to fall off anyway. They don't belong in your life anymore. And you're able to let it go. A lot of times we have expectations that are silly, right? Because we already know what witnesses think. We were witnesses. And then we get so hurt when witnesses do what witnesses do. What is disappointment? Disappointment is merely unfulfilled expectation. That's all it is. So why are we putting expectations on people that we know are going to let us down? We already know what they're going to do. So we got to begin to let go. And when you feel hurt of a situation, remember this. It's not the end of the story. I promise you that some of the hurts you feel, some of those people will surprise you and come around in their own time. So just because you're feeling something right now, it doesn't mean that's the end of the story with that person. I've got to look at it that way with my own son. My own son hasn't talked to me in 2.5 years. But the way I have to look at it, it's not the end of the story. I'm not going to look at that like, oh my God, I'm cut off from my son. And, it is horrible, but it's not the end of the story. I have faith that an amazing story is at the end. When you go to a movie, and if the movie is good right through and everything goes the star's way, that's a boring movie. A good movie is gonna have its highs, its lows. It's gonna make you cry. It's gonna move your emotions all kinds of ways, and you're happy at the end when it all works out for the star character. So I just look at it that way. Okay. Another mistake I made is in the beginning when I left, I made the organization so big. I made me small. I made the organization big. And when you do that, you still carry reverence for people. So when I saw an elder who wanted to talk to me, even though I'm not a witness, I still looked at that person as an elder, like he had some jurisdiction. Sometimes I'd feel uncomfortable if I was around witnesses, and I'd play my role. I'd put my head down and act like something was wrong with me. And when I finally learned that no, the religion is very small, that I left the religion because I got bigger. My consciousness grew. I got bigger. It's getting smaller. Now that religion's small. And when I see somebody that was an elder and overseer, they're just Jim, Jack, Mark, whatever their name is. They have no reverence in my life, zero. So I can walk up to them and I can be loving to them. Like, how's the family? Hey, Rodney, you ever think about coming back? No, we are on absolutely different pages on that part of life. I've moved on, and I'm real happy. How are you? How's the wife? We don't need to talk about that. See, they're just another person. I don't need to be mean to them. I don't need to be unkind to them. But whatever they got to share has no reverence in my life. Another thing is I wanted to prove myself. This is number 7. I wanted to prove myself. Like I use the organization as something to be like, you watch what I do. Now there is some credence to that. I mean, there is some. I like to say that one of the best things to wake people up, that helps wake people up, is watching you live a successful life, a happy life, you thriving in life. But I used to use that as motivation. And when I use that as motivation, it still made this way too important. Okay, I'm still tied to this. No, that's not what motivates me today. Now, I hope that people are watching and seeing that I'm happy, but that's not my motivation. I'm not trying to show up anyone. I'm not trying to show up the organization. I'm just living my truth. And if they're watching me, they can see that my life got a lot bigger, that I'm doing very well in life. But that's not my motivation. I needed to make this irrelevant. Remember, the opposite of caring about something is not anger, it's apathy. It's when something really doesn't matter to you anymore, right? So just let go. Find other things that motivate you. Begin to understand that you have an obligation to live the fullness of who you are. You have an obligation to the rest of us on this planet to live the bigness of who you are, to share who you are, to use who you are to add value to the lives of others. And if you look at it that way, that's a really good motivation. That you are special. Every single person is special. You are very special. You are one of one, special, one of a kind, never to be repeated again human being. And the world needs to see you in your fullness. That's great motivation. Another mistake I made is I went looking for truth. Why? Because witnesses will tell you when you leave, if this isn't the truth, what is? As human beings, what we have is growth, not the truth. Every century, we found out how ignorant we were the century before. What is truth? We know nothing as human beings. We know nothing. All we can do is find things that resonate and find a truer truth for us. And we're always free to change our mind. But it's not about finding the truth, because you'll find that you could poke holes in just about everything, right? But find things that resonate with you, that are true for you at this stage of life, and keep growing. You see, when you say you have the truth, you've capped yourself off. When you think you have the truth, you no longer ask questions. You just defend what you know. Somebody who thinks they have the truth does not grow. That's why witnesses are the same people at 80 as they were at 30. They don't grow. They're exactly the same people their entire lives, because they have the truth. To grow, you must ask questions. To grow, you must question things. To grow, you must question your beliefs. You've got to be able to change your mind, to augment, to change, to grow, to expand. That was a mistake I made. Another mistake, this will be number 9. Another mistake I made was I wanted validation from my family. You're not going to get validation for people who live in this little bitty world. This is witnesses. They live in this little bitty world. And everything outside here, they invalidate. That's why they love labels, because they want to put a label on something and invalidate it. With witnesses, anything they don't understand, you know, things that they don't understand, say things having to do with a different kind of spirituality. Let's just say that it's going to be demonic to them. Why? Because they can't explain it. It doesn't fit in their little world. If you go out into the world and have financial success, oh, you're greedy, or you're materialistic, or they're going to put a label on everything, because they need everything to fit in this world. So they're going to invalidate you. So for me, looking for validation from my family was silly. I've done a lot of really cool things. They don't care. I've been able to live a life as a motivational speaker where I've touched the lives of thousands and thousands and thousands of people, high schools, colleges, corporations. I've done some really cool things, but I'm the loser in my family. No matter what I do, I will be the loser to them. I have two brothers that are elders. They're the winners. I'm the loser. It doesn't matter if I became president of the United States, I'd still be the loser in my family. So you can't look for validation from people with that belief system, because you'll never get it. You got to let it go. You got to understand that you've elevated. And what's down here doesn't realize they're down here. What's down here, they think this is the top, but you're here, right? And this doesn't make sense to them. You can't explain this stuff to someone down here. It just will not resonate, will not make any sense to them. So don't even try. Just accept that you've outgrown them. A lot of you were born with a consciousness that is beyond your own parents. Some of you had a consciousness beyond your parents when you were 16 years old. Some of you could look at this organization and go, none of this makes sense to me, when you were 16. But your parents will never see that. Your parents will never see that. I don't care if you're 50 years old today. Your parents will always look at you as being under them. And you may have outgrown them decades ago. So long you know that, that's the main thing, that you know that. And number 10, I had no sense of purpose when I left. I was just kind of bouncing around. I didn't have any sense of self, because a religion defined me for so much of my life. I didn't have any sense of self. And that's why I was bouncing around. That also ties into the escapism. I didn't have any sense of purpose. And purpose is very important. Very important. And if you don't know what it is, then start with this. Find a way to give. Find a way to add value to the lives of others. It may not be your purpose, but I guarantee you move closer to your purpose when you get in the habit of giving. Not giving for an agenda like the witnesses. They always give for an agenda, but just giving. And I don't care if it's going down to the soup kitchen once a week, feeding the homeless. I had one lady I coached that she started working with Habitat for Humanity. That was awesome. She just felt so good doing that. Find ways to give back. Find ways to add value out of pure love, not with an agenda like the witnesses do, but out of pure love. And as you start to do that, you start to associate the gifts and talents that you have, and you'll find a way to kind of connect that in time. Remember, knowing the answers to things is not where you start. You start with the desire of. You just must desire to know. And then you'll start reading, you'll start meeting people. Maybe you're going to personal development events. You're taking in knowledge. Sometimes you can't find it right now, because you just haven't tapped into the knowledge that might lead you to that. And understand that your answers are really not out there. Your answers are within yourself. Begin to love yourself. Begin to appreciate yourself. Begin to live a life in gratitude where you're grateful with all that's right in your life. Start there, right? And then just let things kind of expose themselves. And the answer, I promise you this, the answer will come out of you, not from grabbing things out there. It's not necessarily in a relationship or this or that or moving here or moving there. It comes out of you. The real you will begin to emerge when you get rid of all the junk. And that's why I say it's really important to control your bandwidth, where you focus. Okay, if you just focus on the witnesses and you just focus on that stuff constantly, you'll never find yourself, because you're still tied to that. So begin to just loosen up. Go through the stages. I'm not trying to say um, don't take in that knowledge if you need it. If you're not seasoned, go for it. Go deep. Take it all in. But at some point, you got to realize it's time to move on. Okay, so let's bring our panel up. We got a fantastic panel waiting in the green room. So let's bring them up. We got Jack, we got Bree, we got Christine today, we got Rachel, we got Debbie, and Gary. All right, this was a meaty topic, and I know y'all made some mistakes too. Just I did, because that's what we do as human beings. So who wants to start? Who wants to start? Gary?
Yeah, why be shy, right? Yeah, only because I was just thinking about this a couple of weeks ago. Well, I'd like to talk about the things I did right, but maybe if there's time later, we'll see. I just want to tell you about what I did wrong, because that's what you can really learn from better, probably. I kind of got over it pretty quickly for the most part, but I think that the way you'd have to describe it was that I was always looking for validation, or maybe I should say I was always looking for people to believe my story, believe who I was, the witnesses, I mean. It has to do with the way I got out. I mean, I'll just put it in a real small nutshell. My then wife actually had me arrested on false charges, and was eventually thrown out, and I was exonerated because there was nothing to it. But you know, it caused a big clamor in the JW community, and I couldn't go to our Kingdom Hall well, I never really went back anyway. But I was going to other Kingdom Halls, you know, because I still thought it was the truth. So that's in a nutshell. So you can see why I would have obvious reasons for wanting to clear my name among the witnesses, because I was still baptized. I was still in good standing, whatever that means. And I didn't even know what different permutations of my story various people believed. I just knew that crazy things came back to me. So if I told you the lengths that I went to clear my name, you'd be astonished. But I'll just say that it had to do with every piece of evidence I produced, which was probably about 10 or 12 different lines of evidence produced for my court case, that all the worldly people knew that my wife has to be crazy and all the JWs have to be crazy to believe, because they knew where I was. I had a radio show, and that's where I was at the time, that I supposedly was an hour away at home doing this, whatever she said I did. So I compiled evidence like crazy, and I was trying to communicate with people through emails, through Facebook Messenger, through just different ways, so I could isolate who's telling what story. You know, like I just needed to know who's saying what. And let me tell you, when you start, that generates a sense of paranoia in you, which you can't fix. It's just going to grow and grow and grow. So I think that was my biggest mistake by far, was worrying about what they think about me, even though I realized that within days of this whole thing starting, I realized that the Brotherhood is an outright sham, because they all dumped me in a heartbeat. So even though I still felt it was the truth and I wanted to have a connection, I realized that the Brotherhood is, and so why do I care about these people? I did all these things for them over the years, and they do nothing for me, but all this negative stuff. So I realized immediately that they don't mean anything to me. Yet I still cared what they thought about me. Now, I don't know if you can process that, but that's the way it was. It was really important to me that they understand that I was not guilty of any of the crap that was made up. And then I'm still the same person. I'm not out smoking cigarettes and drinking like crazy and you know, chasing women. I'm not doing any of that stuff. So anyway, the elaborate efforts I went to really backfired, because then it's like you're trying to justify yourself. And the one thing you have to know as a witness is that when you try to justify yourself, it's like the Shakespeare quote, "She doth protest too much." You're guilty. Because you're complaining and saying I'm innocent, you're guilty in their minds, you know. So it's just a big mistake to try to justify yourself and prove anything. And I did it. I just kept doing it long after I realized it wasn't making sense anymore. And I'm not really sure at what point I stopped doing that, but it had to do with the fact that and this has to do with some of the things I did right, which I won't go into now because it takes too long. But you know, I had been developing a lot of friendships with so-called worldly people anyway. So I finally realized I don't really need this validation. There's no point. And eventually, after 4 years, I was disfellowshipped anyway. And then you know that you have no control of the story in their minds. right?
Yeah, losing the need to be right because you're
Right,
not going to be right with them, right? If you're
right,
not one of them, you're always going to be the wrong one. Like if you got
right,
different and your wife's still in the organization, you're going to be the wrong one. So
right.
losing the need to be right with people who are no longer a part of your life when you've decided to move on is very, very important. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Next, who'd like to share next? Christine?
Thank you. And thank you for going through points because I think it's just helpful as a way to remember. And I feel we all go through stages, different stages. I was able to leave as a child at 13, but after finding your group, I realized what was in my subconscious and looking back on my life. I could see where I was still looking for validation, looking for a group to fit in with. And I had tried the big party scene. I was going to a different church. That didn't feel so good or resonate after a while either. So it was like the pendulum swung the opposite way from being, good church girl, everyone's watching you, it felt like, having to toe the line all the way to the other end of partying, traveling, drinking, sex, all of that, and figuring out I still felt empty, coming back really to the middle and to myself. But as I look back at my different stages, I really see, where we were in the blame stage of these bad things are happening because of someone or something outside of us. And I've been able to bring it back into myself and really look at where am I responsible in this and what do I get to choose to believe in, not just based on what someone else has told me. That helped a lot. A big one during the last few years has been judgment. Where did I or where do I judge others or myself? Because just remembered when we would go out in service, we would get back in the car and we would talk about the people who didn't want our magazines or what have you. And so it was just like, I don't know, so incredible that we're out there preaching God's word or sharing Jehovah's message, but talking poorly about the people that snubbed us or, did something when we got back to the car. So just like looking at that, I found a place where I can look back and say, okay, what are the good things that I can pull out of it, but also what stages. I feel when you can get to the place where there's forgiveness and compassion and even gratitude for the things happening, or gratitude that, I have the difference to look back on. Half my family is still in, and the other half are out, the main ones that I know. So I feel just like have a look at where you are and what stage you're in, and so much compassion, because I feel if you've been able to step away from a big tribe like that, you are very brave, and keep going. Find community and find purpose. Those are the two biggest things that will help you to move forward. Thank you.
I love the fact that you learn from all your experiences, good or bad. It's life is learning. Life is not about judgment. And again, judgment, when you judge others, you're the harshest on yourself when you do something wrong, when it's your turn, right? So just having compassion for others and compassion for yourself also. It's all a journey, and you can't undo things of the past. You can just learn from them. Beautiful. All right, next, Jack.
And I find it very interesting. All the points that you've mentioned, I think majority of them I experienced. But I wanted to talk about how Jehovah's Witnesses mindset is more like a child, and I would even say pre-teen child. If you watch somebody growing, there's this moment in life when you become a teenager, and when you become a teenager you start pushing the boundaries, you start saying no to your parents, and you start coming up with your own ideas, and you make a lot of stupid mistakes at that age. But your parents will tell you, I'm not allowing you to date this guy and or this girl, whatever, and then you're gonna at night jump out of the window, you go see them anyways. So you break the rules, and you're gonna pay for those those mistakes you make. But eventually, you will learn how to navigate, and you will learn how to make decisions. You will learn how to find yourself, who you are, and what you want to do. And you're not gonna be a copy of your parents. You're gonna be your own person. Now, Jehovah's Witnesses never went through that process because they were never allowed to rebel. They were never allowed to disagree. They were never allowed to state their own mind and do anything outside of the box. So they view Jehovah as their father and the organization more like their mother, and they're like a child, and they'll just obey, obey, obey. When we leave, that's when we go through that teenage years. And then we're like, okay, we can do whatever we want, right? Okay, there's no mom and dad here anymore, and we can do whatever we want. And it is needed. And a lot of people go through this for a short period of time. Some people go for a longer period of time, but I think it's needed to make your own mistakes and learn, as long as you don't stay there, because then you're very quickly gonna destroy your life. But it's interesting to watch how people who are 40, 50 years old, and they start acting like teenagers when they leave their religion. Like little kids are like, oh, I can do anything I want. Look, I can say, I can start swearing if I want to, and I can have a cigarette, and I can have a birthday, right? And it's kind of funny to watch for people who have never been witnesses, but we understand. We understand. And these people, they need support from us, and this is why we're doing the things that we were doing. But remember, this is just a phase. This is just a season in your life, just like when we were teenagers, right? Like this is just a season. And there's a moment when you're like, okay, I don't have to prove anything to anybody. I don't have to prove anything to the Jehovah's Witnesses. I don't have to show myself, and explain myself and any of those things. And then you become an adult. And at that point, you're like, okay, I own my life. I own my mistakes. I own my decisions. They're not always perfect, but I'm not going to blame anybody. I'm not going to blame the organization. I'm not going to blame the people. I'm not going to blame the elders. I'm not going to blame anybody. This is my life. This is my choice. Those choices I've made because I believed it was the best choice I could have made back then. And you move on. And when you move on, you got to work. You got to work on yourself more than you work on anything else at that moment. Read books, go to seminars, there's tons of stuff available for free right now like never before, and work on yourself, work and work and work, and within a short period of time you can catch up. But if you stay just watching what's behind you and what the JWs are doing wrong, and find another scandal or whatever, you're gonna be like this, I don't know, a 13-year-old constantly complaining that mom and dad told them not to play with somebody else.
And it's important that people understand that we're not saying, people are going to find whatever life and lifestyle works for them. There's a difference between that and escapism, right? When you're trying to fill a void,
Mhm.
that's what we're talking about. Not so much any judgment of how people choose to live their life, but when it's done to escape, when you are just trying to fill a void with stuff, whether it's alcohol or things that get out of control that are affecting your life to the negative, that's a problem. Okay, so understand when you're doing that. Okay.
Yeah. Or like you mentioned, when you're trying to do this to prove to them something. You're not
Yeah.
doing this because you want to. This is not the choice that you would normally make for yourself. But you're doing this because you want to stick it into them. You want to show them, oh, look, I can smoke cigarettes right now. I'm going to blow it in your face. Like, really? Like, they really don't care. They really don't care what you do with your life. You can put up whatever show you want, and they're not going to show up to watch you. So don't waste your time trying to prove anything to them.
Yeah. So long as you're doing whatever you do for your own reasons and not about that with them.
Yeah.
Awesome. Next, Rachel, did you have your hand up?
I did. So I'm going to take it in another direction because, yes, of course, I made many mistakes, and I think you touched on those really beautifully, everyone. But I think the direction that you have to look to after you make some of those mistakes, and what helped me the most being out for 25 years, is learning to love yourself through those mistakes and learning to connect with whatever information or community that you align yourself with that is going in a direction that you want to go. There is a place out there for all of you. There is a purpose for everyone. And it's so amazing to me as I meet many individuals who have left behind different organizations, because I've had the privilege of working with people from several former organizations that were similar to my upbringing, which was as a Jehovah's Witness. And these changes that you make, they do come within. They will come the minute that you choose yourself, the minute that you choose to align with who you really are, and the minute that you take time and listen, really listen inside. We were taught not to listen to ourselves, but to listen to someone talking to us. We were taught to read only certain things. And when you break free from that, yes, you may go the route of all the mistakes and all those things, and that's okay. I went through several journeys of joining different groups and things, trying to find my way. But what I really found is your way, you already know your way inside of you. And if you're quiet long enough, and if you pump yourself full of positivity and work on your self-love and compassion, these things will flow to you bit by bit until you figure out your purpose. And when you figure out your purpose, you will have so much energy, and you will find that your bandwidth that once was taken up by an organization is now 100% taken up by your purpose and your passion. And I just want to encourage people to go for that. Don't dwell on the mistakes. You're going to make them, but pull yourself in another direction, because there's so much out here for you. All that fear, everything you were taught to be afraid of, it isn't so. That was just to control and keep you in a low place. You're high energy, and the minute you leave and start to develop that, you'll see how powerful you are.
Such a beautiful share. Self-love is so important, because you just flat out make different choices when you love yourself, right? Self-love will fill the void in and of itself. You like you. You know, a lot of times when you have that void is because you don't like your own company. Right?
That's right.
But when you love you, you keep fortifying you. You want to read, you want to learn, you want to grow. It's like watering a plant. So thank you. And when we make mistakes, get up, dust yourself off, and keep it moving. Don't sit there beating yourself up. Again, the witnesses taught you that when you made a mistake as a witness, you're paying for it a year later. Still talking about a year later. Get up, dust yourself off. What did I learn from this? Okay, I'm not doing down that road anymore. I'm going down this one. And you'll make mistakes less. And you're human. You'll always make some mistakes, but you'll make them less when you love yourself. Just like when you love your child, you can see when they're going in the wrong direction. You can guide them because you love them so much. Always put yourself on the same level as your children. Okay, I'm not saying to put yourself on some crazy pedestal. Just put yourself on the same level as your children. Right? The things when you see your children about to harm themselves, you go, no. When you see your children saying things negative about themselves, you go, don't you ever talk to yourself like that. Don't you ever say that about yourself. And you correct your child while you beat yourself up. No. Have the same expectation and the same standards for yourself as you do your children. And then you'll love yourself like you love your own children. Thank you so much. Bree, you had your hand up?
Yes. I grew up as a witness most of my life, and I was considered like the golden child. I was very active in the organization and looked up to, and I never questioned it. I never questioned it at all because I was emotionally connected to it. And when I decided to question it and saw the facade and saw that it was not real, it was not the truth, it was very easy for me to leave it. And when I can't explain it. It was almost like my whole reality was taken from me. My whole life, my everything, you all know how that feels. Everybody knows how that feels. But it was like I was put in a different reality, and I was lost, and I did not fit in the reality that I was now in because I didn't relate to it at all. I didn't have anything to talk about when I tried to associate with others and tried to find my way and fit in. I just didn't. I felt very lonely. And so I isolated. I had a lot going on, going through a divorce, raising 3 kids. Like, it was very easy to isolate and not get involved. But it wasn't until I realized like I had some serious hurt and serious traumas, and seeking therapy, coaching one-on-one with you pivotal. Oh my goodness, that was life-changing for me. Your boot camp was like everything. I can't even recommend it enough, because it touches on all of those deep-seated layers that you're affected as a witness that you are not even aware of. And that sense of self, you are absolutely right. Like, knowing my worth, learning my worth, learning who I am as a person, like trusting my intuition, learning my value is everything. And I just think everybody needs to seek some sort of therapy and not just isolate. And that was another thing I was going to touch on, was judgment. My judgment of others. Like, you all touched on that. You don't realize how, as a witness, everything is black and white. You have a judgment of everything. It's either good or bad. And that judgment still carries on. Like, you still subconsciously have those judgments going through life of good and bad. And I can remember even hanging out with some friends after work, and they would make fun of me because when they would get their weed out, like, my body stiffened, and I just, like, I didn't even realize I was doing that, but they of course noticed that was something I was very uncomfortable with. But unlearning, that's extremely important, is unlearning all of those things all of those layers that were put upon us, and not judging ourselves, and learning that it's okay. Like, life experiences, it's all okay. And resentment, that was another thing. Resentment of those that treated me bad whenever I left. Like, I caught myself resenting them. Like, they treated me very ugly. Like, I was shocked, because these are people that I valued, I viewed as my spiritual parents. Like, I was very closely connected. So for them to literally look at me and with disgust or avoid me, it was just, I just could not understand it on a any type of level. So I found myself holding resentment towards them, and I quickly realized, like, you can't meet them with at the same level they're coming at you. You have to be the better. You have to always be yourself. You always have to be who you are, and not stoop to their level. Like, be kind, be loving, because that's the only way that they're ever going to that's going to surprise them, I guess, more than just retaliating, giving them what they're giving you, and having a reaction negative to their behaviors.
They cannot take your light. You are a light.
Mhm.
So it's hard. They cannot see who you've become. So you can't even try. So you're such a great example. Your brain is a sponge. You love learning, and you're just such a great example of how to make that trek after leaving. So thank you for sharing. Debbie, what do you got?
Wow. Everybody has said such amazing stuff, and I really resonated with that message about compassion. I felt that in my heart. Thank you so much for sharing. I can't remember her name, in the middle of the screen.
Rachel,
Thank
Rachel.
you so much for
Rachel.
that. I felt that healing come through me. For me, I think I don't like to look at mistakes that I made. I think they were just natural recurrences of being in a very confined mental environment. And so it's natural for me to kind of feel like squeezed and then to expand real quickly. And so for me, I think my mistake would have been not being kind to the people I was leaving behind, because I was like, I am out. I don't care. You're not going to talk to me. That's fine. But I'm not doing this anymore. Right. So I think my exit was very defining, very clear to a lot of people. And the only difference I saw in my mind was that I'm just not following that particular designation in a religious form anyway. I am still the same person that I was in and out. That same fun, funny, crazy, cute Jamaican person. I am still that person. So when people would meet me after I would leave, they would have this like glitch in their minds, because it's like, wait, are you still? Yeah, because that real me that you met on the inside, that's who I am today. So I like that point that you made, Rodney, number 6, that making the organization big. I don't make it big. To me, it's just another religion. It's extremely controlling. The people in there are regular people who are just under deep mind control.
Mm-hmm.
And the best way that I can interact with them when I see them is just to be the same loving, kind, compassionate human being. Even if they shun me, it's kind of like, that's nothing to do with me. That's indoctrination, right? I don't have that anymore. I'm not going to carry the guilt if I even did that to anybody that when I was in there, because I was doing that because I didn't know any better, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that self-compassion for myself and for others is something that I just use it like you put like lots of peanut butter on a jelly sandwich, to slap that compassion in my heart all the time for myself and them. It's not that big of a deal.
Mm-hmm.
You see those people, they don't have to trigger you. They
Mm-hmm.
really, really don't. If you are feeling anything inside, it's not about them. It's about you. And give yourself the grace that you need and the ease and the peace that you deserve when you leave. Be good to yourself. The self-love, the self-care, that's the big message when you leave, because you don't learn that when you're in.
Mm-hmm. Everybody watching, you feel Debbie's energy. It's a powerful energy, but it's a kind energy. But it, somebody who walks with that kind of energy, people feel that. People are not that different than pets. Animals know if you're scared. They know if you're nervous. They know if you're a bad person, if you're a good person. Animals pick up on stuff, but people are the same. And they tend to respond to the energy that you bring. So you loving yourself, as Rachel said, you being kind and loving to yourself, you having that energy where your expansion shows, people feel that and people respond to that. So love yourself, love others, do everything from a place of love, and you will find that your journey will be a much easier journey. You'll find that people, they don't even know where to put, they don't know where to step around you, because you're just not playing the game. You're not dancing with them, right? And they will conform to you more times than not. So, my friends, thank you for joining us today. For those of you again on YouTube, hit that like and subscribe button. Share this with everyone you know who could use this information, and make sure to join us. Every Sunday, we'll be uploading this. Those in the Empowered Minds group, thank you for joining us live. Those of you who watch the replay, thank you for watching the replay. But join us every Sunday, or whenever you see this video pop up on whatever platform it is. We do this every single week. Everyone go out there and make this coming week your masterpiece. Take care, and we will see you next week.